Hello everyone, we are back for the most important video of our course. And this video we are gonna build our common agent where we're gonna have very heavy prompt engineering to achieve what we need. So this will be especially good after our, let's say, disappointment with our last agent where it didn't really behave as we wanted. So the prompt engineering didn't apply much effect. But we're gonna see that prompt engineering is very powerful and you can build very powerful things. So I didn't want to spend much time on the previous one because that's not the most important one. So I prepared a new agent with a very heavy prompt engineering to achieve what we need. And I'm not going to type everything there, so I have added it here already because it's a lot and it will take a lot of time to prepare that. Not to type all that. I have prepared already everything for us. I'm gonna walk you through this prompt later, but before I want to quickly touch on the options you have when you're trying to achieve this kind of logic. And so when you're trying to achieve a heavy logic to build, let's say, very structured JSON with a lot of logic behind. So we have the option of go with text generation, where you just kind of prompt everything how we want that, what we want to the ChatGPT to be returning. But the OpenAI also have offered this function calling where we can also leverage, right? So this function calling would work better with ChatGPT 4, and text generation works pretty well with the ChatGPT 3.5 as well. And since we want to be more agnostic to the DLMs that will be behind the things, I think text generation make sense to have, especially because then you can migrate that to others. And later we are going to implement also the functional calling version of it, so you can have both of the both functionality, right? But we're going to start with the text generation one, where we're going to kind of prompt everything on this single text generation call. And then later we implement the function one. Before we go to the common agent, let's do some stuff here, some cleanup we need. I think the first thing it is that we not going to use the JSON structure this way anymore. So I'm gonna remove this. The JSON fixer, we're gonna actually move it out into a dedicated agent, dedicated file, let's say. JSON, I'm gonna call extractor actually because we're gonna change its functionality from fixer into extractor. And we will have the fixer. Let's leave this like this for now. Let's call this extractor. Um, Now we don't have the fix anymore. This, just place this with it. And we don't need those anymore. Let's remove this. And let's call our JSON extract agent with the what to prompt. And I think we don't need this one. Yeah, so just get the latest message and extract it, and then we can, let's say JSON data, JSON data output, can just return the message itself. Okay, so the first thing it is if it is the answer, we are not going to extract it. So I think the best is us to just return it here. In this case, output method, and then the action we'll do like that. So I think it's even better to do like this. And so you don't need it. Okay. And what this JSON extract is going to do, it's not going to use the ChatGPT to do the extractor anymore. We are going to call ChatGPT to fix it only if it's failed to parse. So we are going to say cell parse, so maybe parse JSON task and input. And here you're gonna be the JSON data. The JSON parse here is gonna be basically calling JSON loads with the text put. It's they tried because this would fail if the JSON is not valid. So an exception JSON. We're not interested in this one anyway, so let's just return none. And if it is worked properly, we did return. Can probably don't need that to be estimated. Start. Yeah, I think that's what we need. Then we check if the JSON data really exists, so set it, and we return. If it doesn't work, then we want to ask ChatGPT to fix that for us. Hold the code address. And then we say we try again with the response. So pass JSON, output message, JSON data. We check it again. Data. If it works, and if not, we just set the output response and return the task. So here we are trying to get a valid JSON, and if it doesn't work, we just return whatever we get. So just for troubleshooting perspective, we're gonna see what was getting the end of the whole operation. Think that's it for our JSON extractor. There is something else that I want to do. It's basically extract. To know when the response is gonna come with some text and JSON all together. We want to be able to extract that, and we don't need to ask ChatGPT how we were doing before in order to extract that. We can just implement a function that would be trying to extract that for us. And I will just place it here. I got it from I just asked ChatGPT to write that for me. And I'm gonna just use it here. I'm not going to try to explain what it's here, but you can just say that it's trying to get the opening one and the close one, and just getting if you have multiple JSON objects on the main, which also happens on the response from ChatGPT sometimes, I just grab the biggest one. So let's just use it here as part of a JSON parse. Put it in and do here in JSON. Okay. Now we have everything we need in the service itself. Action, we call the command. We're going to give some command structure, we extract it, and then we respond it. Okay, so now let's dig into the command agent one, and that will be an interesting one. So the first thing, I have to do a lot of try and error here to kind of build this structure that it's very effective and it's working very well. So sometimes it's not logically for us how we are doing here, but it's what it made it work properly. Let's start with what is system prompt here. So you are a bot helping the user to execute tasks. If you are unsure and the answer is not explicitly written in the documentation, say sorry, I don't know how to help with that. Give the following information from the documentation, provide for the user's task using only this information. That's basically what we're gonna be presenting on the agent. Then we get this main command prompt, and this would be basically not the main. Yeah, the main. So we're gonna pass the contact, which it is our dog, and we pass the user input into it, and now we're gonna build a prompt here. First thing, we set the system prompt, and then I add the documentation right after it. So I tried to add this documentation as part of the user role. Didn't work well, so I had to put it here. And then I'm doing this way, kind of a line that's gonna be under the documentation, just to separate well how things would be structured in the end. Then we have another system with the current date and time. So this is gonna be used as part of our system if you input anything asking date involved that has the current time involved. So we are gonna have one example of this. Then I ask as a single item on our, let's say, prompt user role. So I couldn't concatenate everything in one single one. It was working better if we were sending different, let's say, messages inside this prompt. So we break down, execute the task using only the provided documentation above, which we refer to documentation here. And then here, I pass some response formats and structure, and this is a lot of things there. We're gonna go down there later, but let's keep going here. Next, I determine that I want this specific format. Also, I had to put after, not in here. Under what I'm saying here, under no circumstances should not your response deviate from the following JSON format. I'm giving also an example of the JSON format that should be returning. And then finally, I provide the user input. And this is the user input. I'm asking to add some markdown code snipped to kind of help us in the parsing. I also hear nothing else as well. I would like to not have any text with it, but it's actually adding text with it. So, but anyway, we're asking for that, and we describe the user input here. The response format that we are mentioning here, right, that we are expecting it is, this is the JSON. I want some structure with thoughts, which are going to basically say what you're going to be doing. And I want also some speak, which is would to be friendly summary what's going to be doing. So you can kind of prompt that, let's say, show that information to the user as part of the process. Then we have a structure of the command itself, which the command is going to come with a command, which can be any of those three options here that we have defined. It can be the command is the command is gonna be API call, browse website, or call it the JavaScript function. This command is gonna come with some argument with the arg name and the value arg for the command, and then you're gonna have some properties here. So how to render the request render for the user. It's basically we are describing here how we're gonna display the inputs for the user in the UI. So we say I want to have a field name and I want the field type and the field options. For example, field type, say models, different models are going to be a select, and you have the option ChatGPT 1, ChatGPT 3, and ChatGPT 4. And password, for example, there is no field option for that. And then you have the response render, which will be basically how we are gonna display the response of this command. After we display to the user the request sort of with the fields, after the user press proceed, then you're gonna go and execute the task and coming back, how it's gonna be displayed. This is how we use to display, for example, a chart, right? So one of the examples you have, it is to display some GitHub information in a chart instead of a list. So list is the default, but then you can kind of set some different way of handling our response. Chart is one example of it. That's the expected response format that we are then waiting to, and it's kind of expecting on the UI. So it's going to be reading all this information and be creating the UI for the user based on this information. So this is the whole, let's say, core of our system. It is to be able to return this information properly. That's the core of our what we're trying to achieve here. And then have to add more information, which it is, that's the instruction for how to build the expected structure, right? So response instruction. Here we kind of saying that we have few options of the instruction. Basically, describe the API call, describe the website, and a JavaScript function. So this is, we are basically say, when responding to me, please output a response in one of the 5, which is not 5, it's 3 formats. Option 1, use this if the command is a API call. When it's an API call, so when we are giving the context, and in the context is a, like the context in this case in our docs, you have, let's say, indexed on our data in our heads. On this context is going to be indicated that in order to perform that command will be an API call. So ChatGPT is going to understand that's chat when that what is going to be used is an API call. In that case, we're going to be providing all this information here for the API call. API call requires a name, which will be the API call. We require argument. In this argument, it will be URL, method, the data request, which is going to be a kind of JSON object. The headers, we're going to have a JSON object for the headers, and the arguments for the API call. And also have the request handler and response render that I have already explained. And in this case, when API calls would have list or chart. That's the two available today. For the option 2, we choose the command when it's a browsing a website. So we're going to have examples that instead of calling API call, we're going to actually browse a URL. So we're going to have to return this some information from this case as well. So we say the name will be browse a website, and we expect the URL. It's basically that. And on the URL, we also require the request render, because you're going to have some fields for to be displayed for the user with the parameter, right? So it's a browser. When you're browsing a URL, you might have some get parameters in there. In those cases, if you have get parameters, we want to display to the user those parameters as fields, so the user can input the data for those parameters. And the option 3, finally, it's a JavaScript function, right? A JavaScript function. And in those cases, we're gonna call this JS function, and we're gonna have a parameter function which will contain the name of the function, the code of the function, and the parameters for the function. That's this parameter that you're expecting. And then we kind of say that any of those commands would have to have the thought in it, right? And big that. So this the whole representation here, it is, let's say, different how to choose what to be how to build our command here. So we had to pass all that as instruction and give an example, passing some information to the to each parameter. So this way ChatGPT understand it, digest it, and build beautifully what you are expecting. Let's see if it works after that. So a lot of prompting engineering here, but I think it will work fine. I have big faith on that. Let's test it here and try it out. What I want first it is help me to create a app. And something went wrong. Okay. Dictionary has no attribute agents. JSON extractor process. Not it. That's what we're getting here. Let's fire it again. I'm gonna look at the response in here because this will be better formatted. Okay. JSON data. JSON data is the JSON already. It's a string and not a single JSON. Should look like it works. What I'm setting here. Okay. I'm setting the response, but we kind of said that this should always be. Why didn't show here, but we're expecting it. I have to change that. What to put in here so we can get some hints when you're doing things wrong. Mm. Mm. That in here. So we want hints. Disappointing. But anyway, I'm gonna do LM usage. There is no usage. If it works fine, the first one. And the second one, gonna have the JSON rest usage. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, there you go. So in order to create a app based on our instruction on our doc, we will have to have API call name. We'll have to call this endpoint, correct? And call with a post with those 4 parameters. And we need a bear token. We request handler you will have app name as input, app description text area, and app temperature as input, app model as select, and the field options will be GPT-3 and GPT-4. And when you are rendering it, it will be a list with those fields. Perfect. That works very nice. Let's see if we have another example. Let's say where we call not API call, but something else. Let's see if I have an example here. Yeah, browser. Let's call address. I'm gonna say add a new address to my account. My address. Then I say 7 Turvey Avenue in Dublin, Ireland. Yes. So it's a browser website, and that's the URL. And the URL it to add on Amazon. Let's see what URL we had here. It is URL in Amazon, and there is few parameters on the URL, and these parameters are already populated, as you can see here. Country code is Ireland. He knows that Ireland is IE. What else? City, Dublin, and then the address line with the Turvey Avenue. Yeah, perfect. So it actually worked very well. And I think that's it for this lesson. So I think we have achieved the most advanced prompt engineering ever. And we are building our expected response here. So from here, we can build any system which will be reading those information and perform any task that we need. This is the core for any automated system. So in our case here, we are using this to build the UI, but that's set the base or the foundation for any automation app or automation agent system that you can build. And this is very exciting. And I hope we see what is the future of developing system and what we're going to have ahead with all these LLM capabilities. And thanks very much. See you in the next lecture.